Hey, it's the weekend, and that means I'm bringing you my 5 favorite new metal albums that got released, as we do every weekend. But this week, I just got to say one thing before we get started. Thank you, Ozzy. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, JonBarbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's album art of the week. And as always, before we jump into the top 5, we got to talk about the big bands that dropped albums this week. Hey, some of the legends and pioneers are still with us. We got a new record from Alice Cooper called The Revenge of Alice Cooper. And this one's pretty cool because a lot of his original bandmates are joining him to make this record. That's the coolest. And I hope that that same positivity can happen to some of my other favorite bands as they grow older and cooler heads prevail. Y'all can do it. I'm looking at you, Mastodon. And speaking of OGs and pioneers, there's a new record from Gore called The Return of Gore. Now, I'm not super up to date on my Gore lore, but it is cool to see an old returning character. And there's a new album from Foyer Schwans, which is German for fire tale. This one's called Nightclub. This band is comedic medieval metal. And how comedic, you might ask? Well, they did a cover of Gangnam Style. And yeah, it's not brutal. It's not typically my style of metal, but the music video is pleasant to look at. And lastly, before we jump into the top 5, a new record from Psycho Frame called Salvation Laughs in the Face of a Grieving Mother. Such a deathcore album title and a really nice sentiment to get things started on. Now let's do the top 5. Coming in at number 5, Bloodletter. Leave the Light Behind, thrash metal out of Chicago. And I've been following this band for a few years now. This time around, they're back with a bit of a darker sound and a bit of a more melodic sound. However, that melody has not dulled the intensity thanks to relentless tempo and those same barking vocals. The melody is an addition rather than a compromise. It's still punchy and heavy. And no, I like it heavy. Coming in at number 4, Atomic Witch with Death Etiquette, thrash metal out of Ohio. A quick look into Atomic Witch's cauldron will reveal all of death metal's filth with thrash metal's intensity and a big splash of trad metal wailing vocal theatrics. And when I say filth, let me illustrate something for you. There is a song called Morgrat that has this really discordant, arpeggiated guitar run, and then the vocalist is making retching noises. So even though it's got those trad metal sort of influences, it's still quite nasty, and the band is chaotic sounding. It's like being a passenger in a stranger's car, and they're taking hairpin turns. The wheels, it's 2 wheels, the car's on its side. You think you're gonna flip over at any second. You're holding on for dear life. But then after they take 4 or 5, half a dozen turns, and each time they do that, you realize, I'm doing this on purpose. This driver is actually pretty skilled and purposeful. Yeah, it's metal for people that are into that kind of chaos. Coming in at number 3, Black Magnet with Mega Mantra industrial metal out of Oklahoma. And this record made me realize, it gave me an epiphany on why later 9 Inch Nails records don't really click for me. Because as a teenager, I was a huge 9 Inch Nails fan, one of those Trent Reznor is a genius sort of guys. And then the later albums, even though they still are really impressive and have all of his trademarks and are artistic and meaningful, they just didn't grab me the way the earlier albums do. This one does, and that's when I realized it's because of that artistry and that genius that I don't really click with the new 9 Inch Nails albums. It's the fury and the intensity. And this one from Black Magnet has that fury, that intensity. It's raw. The synths aren't dystopian and danceable. It's just nasty and pissed off, and I love it. Coming in at number 2, Scalp. Not worthy of human compassion. Death metal / hardcore out of California. I gotta say, this is my favorite kind of hardcore because the death metal breaks it up. I love hardcore, but y'all know what I mean. Those hardcore riffs get really repetitive over the course of a full album, and the cadence that hardcore vocalists have is often same, but that problem is eliminated here because of all the death metal influences. I get the nastiness of that, the abrasiveness of hardcore, the groove of death metal, the scathing social commentary of hardcore. It's just perfect. And hey, before we do number 1, I just got a few things I want to say to you. This segment right here, I usually either do the book recommendation of the month, or I make an announcement, or we do a skit, or I try to sell you something like merch, JonBarbas.shop.fourthwall.com. But I'm not going to do that here. I just want to say thank you to Ozzy once again. I cannot express how much your life and your work has meant to me. I wouldn't be me if you didn't exist. My entire identity and joy in life was spawned from your creation. So I just have to say that. And I don't want to make a big monologue about it here. I will have a tribute to Ozzy on the podcast coming up this week. And I'm going to try to make it different than what everybody else is doing. But you know, it would be weird if I didn't say anything on the first episode after his passing. And I think, like most of you, it was pretty tough. I've done nothing but binge Ozzy videos all week. So once again, thank you. Now let's do number 1. Coming in at number 1, Abyssery with Interminable End, death metal out of Ireland. And this one's haunting, but then it transitions into groovy trainsaw riffs, and then it transitions into, let me just say this. This is the everything death metal record. It does death doom, it does old school death metal, it does cavernous death metal, it has cinematic passages, which is amazing because it doesn't sound disjointed at all. It sounds like one cohesive artistic offering. It's horrific and brutal and superb. And hey, for this week's Dealer's Choice, let's have a little fun, shall we? Cold Slither with their self-titled album. This one brings me back because back in the early 90s, baby Barbas, his dad was stationed in Germany. He was in the army, and I lived with him in Germany for a couple of years, and there was only one TV station in English. And on Saturday mornings, it would show Ninja Turtles and Hanna-Barbera and G.I. Joe reruns that I could watch. Only time I got to watch cartoons when I was a little kid. And here we have Hasbro and Raining Phoenix Music doing a collaboration together to make a G.I. Joe themed heavy metal band. In particular, Cold Slither, which is a heavy metal band that was in the G.I. Joe show that Cobra Commander dreamed up to subvert the will of the populace. It's such a fun and silly thing, but it's awesome and nostalgic, and the music is good. So what more can you ask for? Let's have a little fun this week where we can. All right, my favorite album art this week came from Demon Smoke with Resin Rot. Check that out. To me, that's what it would look like in hell if a demon was smoking a little bit of the herb. The color scheme is so cool. The art style is so cool. I even like the line work on this one. Totally unique. And I dig the band too because they sound like Black Sabbath, exactly like Black Sabbath, except for instead of Ozzy's angelic voice, this band is fronted by a literal demon who's been smoking way too much and has the voice. And they're talking about marijuana stuff in hell. Pretty cool. You're going to get me like that every time. And plus, I've got Black Sabbath on the brain this week. That doesn't hurt, but overall, this album art, super cool, super unique. Bravo, y'all. Hey, you made it to the end of the episode, which means you did the thing that helps heavy metal philosophy the most. You watched the episode from the beginning to the end, and I thank you for that so much. Were you curious about that G.I. Joe themed heavy metal band? Well, if you were, then make sure you listen to this week's podcast because I interviewed the mastermind behind it and we got to find out exactly what sort of wheeling and dealing went on behind the scenes with Hasbro. How did this dude get the opportunity to make music about his favorite IP? If you want to know about that, just click right here. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.